Welcome to Doing Business in Africa. I'm Sue Beukes and we're here in the warm heart of Africa, Malawi, a country that's literally come from rags to riches in just a few short years, and we're going to find out what it's like doing business here. Coming up in the show, how Malawi has evolved from a famine-stricken nation to a net food exporter, how the country is trying to diversify from its key cash crop, tobacco. What treasures lie below the surface, the race for Malawi's resources, and why a uranium mine could help solve the country's foreign exchange problems. Telecoms in Malawi, what's driving growth in this sector? Why some of Africa's biggest banks are moving into Malawi. And how some local entrepreneurs are making it big despite facing some unusual challenges. 5 years ago, Malawi was one of the 10 poorest countries in the world. And when President Bingu wa Mutharika stepped into office, the country's economy was literally in tatters. It faced one of the worst food security situations in the world. There was no money in government coffers, and the country's infrastructure was in a state. The first step on the president's to-do list was to rekindle relationships with the donor community, and then ignore critics and implement an agricultural subsidy program which would inevitably drive an average GDP growth rate of 7.5% for the next 5 years.
I knew we were right. If you look at the smallholder farmers here, using a hoe, a poor woman with a baby on her back, struggling the whole day, and she cannot afford to buy improved seeds. She cannot afford to buy fertilizers. In fact, she cannot even afford to buy small, improved agricultural implements other than a hoe. And then you come and say, that woman does not need subsidy. Then you take the farmers in Europe and North America with modern tractors, computerized, with the music, some of them I understand even air conditioning. You say they need subsidy, and this woman doesn't. And I said, no, you're not serious. So I said, with or without your support, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. But I had, if you like, what might be an exit point. I said, look, if within 3 years I'm not able to feed my people with that subsidy program, then come and you can criticize me, we discuss. But as it turned out, within 12 months, within a year, we turned things around.
Malawi expects to produce 36% more maize this year, creating a surplus of 1.3 million tons. So while its food supplies are secure, the country is over-reliant on tobacco for more than 70% of its foreign exchange earnings.
Agriculture alone employs more than 80% of the whole Malawian population. And out of that 80%, we're talking of something like 32% of the population is now involved in production of tobacco. And out of that 32%, 90% is small-scale farmers, the rest being large estates.
The tobacco industry remains tainted by mistrust between farmers, buyers and government over market prices for the crop. To try curb exploitation of farmers, government introduced a reserve price, but buyers say that a drop in demand for Malawi's burley tobacco is forcing prices down. This puts the industry regulator, the Tobacco Control Commission, between a rock and a hard place.
The auctioneer will always have a reserve price, and that's what we've done to make sure that once the auction for tobacco starts, the starting price should be what the farmer needs to get with his 15% margin. So really, this year the prices have been slightly lower on the pretext that the buying community have perceived an oversupply situation, especially with barley. But we're surprised that that oversupply situation doesn't apply to the Virginia flu, and yet they're also paying lower prices than last year.
Top of the agenda is trying to manage the interests of all the parties involved, while not deterring foreign investment.
We're working towards what one would call a win-win situation, where both parties in the whole matrix are at least happy. It doesn't normally happen that way. As I said, most businesses will try and capitalize on making sure that the raw materials they're getting as cheap as possible, so that they increase their margin at the end of the day. But when that gets beyond just increasing and sustaining their profitability, then it hedges on exploitation.